Hello. All right. Today I wanted to share with you some piece of code that came out in a code review, and I wanted to share with you what would I do forward, what kind of refactoring and why. Because I noticed that I created some patterns that lead me to how I would write code today, and some of those patterns are actually based on some mistakes or trying to optimize what I was doing for the readers and the writers, right? How to maintain it much better. So let's take a look here. I have some types account type, account notification type, and we have two different types that are just, based on the notification type, right? Like this is just a payment due, yada yada. So we have a component here. And then notice that we just have a variable content, and then we check the notification type, do something, and then assign the content value as a JSX. Then do the same here, and then eventually, right, we render that content. Um, Nothing wrong here. I think if you know this pattern, probably if there's a new notification time, you're gonna have to repeat the exact same strategy. Just have an if statement, check for the type. Maybe you have a bunch of variables that is just for that particular component, and then render the JSX and assign it to the content. So one, I want you to notice that what kind of value that variable is holding is a JSX. And every time you see yourself wanting to have a variable that only has is a value of a JSX, I think what you wanted was to create a component instead. And this will be the first refactoring step that I would do, for example. In this case, right, you already have a name for that component, and it could be the notification type itself. So let's do that. Let's actually grab that. Gonna put that there. Gonna put the type, because it's TypeScript. All right. And all I'm gonna do is to copy literally just the body of the if statement in it. And then return. So we are missing type, so we are gonna have to do notification. It's gonna be that type. And in this case for payment due, we need today, which is over here. Whoops, sorry, it's over there. Cool. So, okay, first component done, and now all we need to do is just to replace the value with notification. Payment due notification. Perfect. So we pass the notification, props notification, and we pass today. We come from it, props today. Nice. And it's gone. Now this is failing because we need to typecast to this value. Right, oh, color wrong. Nice. So let's do the same for this one now. So we're just gonna have a component. We are gonna use the type props. Come here, type props. We're gonna have a notification. Gonna learn how to type, which is probably the notification type as the casting is happening. We use that, and we copy the body. Oops, I wanted to copy the body. I know it's not gonna be there, but I want you to see the steps. All right. Yes, it's called props. Cool. Did I mistype something? Yes, the type is this one. Nice. So now I come back here and do the exact same strategy, join notifications, and do something like this, but then the type is actually this one. And that's gone. So automatically, you see that down here is definitely more, it's easier, right? Like you have less thing to worry about it. Uh, and up here, one in TypeScript, we already have the type casting happening in the type definitions. We don't need to do that anymore. So now you know that you're scoping down the notification to actually be the type you wanted. So look, now you don't need to worry about making sure that your variables have to be inside the if statement. And when you're thinking about this component, is you scope down to what that component needs. You could test that component in isolation. You could test this other component in isolation, which they have two completely different testing requirements. And this component over here is easier because it's just becoming something that, do a bunch of if statements and render the content, but the content itself and the details is not here. But I would do even further because you see, like, it's not doing just the if statement. It's doing the if statement and a bunch of other stuff. And I still have this variable over here, which is declared at the top, and like you don't know if somebody's gonna override your content because you have to follow all the previous if statements. You cannot just simply get here and say, yeah, I trust that's gonna be my value because somebody down here could actually override it and stuff like that. And that is a problem because you need to know ahead that nobody would actually do something funky. So I still would do one more refactoring, and the refactoring is simple. I'm just gonna move that to another component, which that component is gonna behave as a switch statement. So I'm gonna copy this here now, but instead of using a variable, I'm gonna use early return. So I'm gonna return, and I'm gonna return. So that variable is gone. So now this statement actually could show us that when the payment due soon notification type, when the notification is that type, this is the content going to be rendered because you're exiting the function. So you're not worried that somebody over here would actually do something incorrect, even though your code was actually correct. And then you could do stuff like I'm gonna have the default value like that, or a default component here. It's not that important. And then since we now have that, we could just come here and spread the properties of this component, and this should be gone. So that's it. Now you could just test this component, which is all about testing, in this case, the type of the notification, making sure you actually rendering the component, the correct appropriate component. You could do even more fancy stuff, but I would keep it here for now. So this will be my final refactoring step. There are some other things, but that's for another episode. This is what I would send to production right now. And again, multiple reasons. It's easy to maintain, I think, because for the most part, you see most things are declarative, right? Like I remove most of the statements. Variables are a scope per component, so you don't have to worry about people making mistakes. You're helping them to avoid mistake with variable collisions or using the variable that you shouldn't be using in the scope or not, or where you declare stuff like that. More important, it's easy to test, right? I can test that component in isolation, this component in isolation, this component in isolation. So, and I reduce the complexity of having imperative code, like in this case the if statement, because it's here still, right? Not everything is declarative, but I reduce it to a single point. So your complexity goes to a centralized place, and you probably add more test cases or property-based testing test cases, or like more careful, maybe. So that's what I wanted to show you. So this will be my final production version. Let me know what you think. I don't know if I did a good job explaining what I did, but yeah, I hope so. um, yeah, let me know what you think about the refactoring step and how I got there and how I identified that I want that as well, which is every time you see yourself assigning a JSX block of content, you probably want a component for sure. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye bye.